Hi everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are on month 10 of Cotton Cut's Puzzle Mystery Quilt Tree of Life. Today was the big reveal. So in the description, I am going to link to the YouTube live that was done with Cotton Cuts. I was a guest on there, as well as a whole bunch of the other ambassadors and the quilts sewn by Sheila, the designer, as well as some members of the Cotton Cuts team. So even if your colorway was not a large Moonlit, there was a whole variety of colorways, and yours may have been on the reveal. I am obsessed. I don't think you can see the whole thing. It is so large. This is my first time sewing a large, my first time sewing a neutral colorway, but I absolutely love it. In the reveal, Sheila talks about how the Tree of Life is integrated through all cultures, and this little motif in the center really almost even reminded me of like a Celtic knot. I'm so inspired by this quilt that I think I actually want to extend it and use it on my bed, because that's how much I love this colorway. I'm so happy I went out of my comfort zone and did a neutral one, but even though it was neutral, it still has plenty of like the blues and grays. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and I hope you love your quilt as much. For my tutorial today, I do the normal time lapses. I didn't show ironing and all the different, or the pressing in the different directions. Just kind of focus on the major steps. This thing gets so large, I have to take it out into my living room. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you to Cotton Cuts for allowing me to be an ambassador. I'm so excited for the next Puzzle Mystery Quilt. It's going to be sign-ups, I believe it's December 6th, maybe? It's the beginning of December. So please keep an eye on the Cotton Cuts Facebook group and website, YouTube channel, so you can get all the details, and I will post them as soon as I have them. Also, if you haven't already, I would love if you subscribed or give me a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. All right, so it's month 10. I have my clue printed out. This is the large size, so there's 4 pages of instructions. So on the right-hand side, it says pieces in this pack. So what is it referring to? For month 10, you should receive a package just like this. These are not extra borders. A lot of times people think that that is what this is. This is needed for month 10 to put on your quilt, even if you did not order extra borders. It also came with a bonus gift. Mine, I got the box, so there are 2 pens in here. So you probably have a bonus gift as well of pens. If you had the box, might be different if you're ordering monthly. So in here, you'll find all the pieces that you'll need for the somewhat of the borders on Clue 10, as well as your binding fabric. If you have ordered extra borders, those are purchased separately. This box down here tells you what it should include and what you should need to finish your quilt. So for this tutorial, I am only using this. I do not have the extra borders. Something a little bit different that I'm going to do as well is I'm going to show how we are putting the steps together, and I'm going to mention the way that pieces are being ironed, but I'm not going to show how I'm pressing them in this video, just because it is going to be longer putting our whole quilt together. And now if you're on month 10, you should understand which way the arrows are pointing to be able to press. So I am going to get started. How I do this is I keep my month 10 near me. I have not opened it yet. In my box, I have my colorway card, which I still keep. I constantly switch up fabrics, especially A and D for Moonlit, because the dark is actually light in the pattern and vice versa. My Flat Nancy, I'm just going to set that to the side. And in here, this is how I have all my clues prepped and how I prefer to keep them until month 10. So each bag has the sections in it. So Clue 9 has all the 9 sections, and they're each labeled. And I have that for all of the months. So I like to set them to the side and only pull out what I need at a time. I have a very small space to put things together, and you're going to see once it starts getting so big, I'm going to have to move to the floor. So for now, I'm going to start at the table, and we have step 1. We have join section 6B to the top and bottom of section 6C, and we are making one of them. And pay special attention to the picture because our triangles are pointing away. So what I'm going to do is I am going to find my mark 6, carefully take them out. I have it with sticky notes. The sticky notes don't always actually stick to the fabric. So here is my 6C for this month. I also always keep my instructions in case I forgot how many pieces of each one there should be. So it shows me I have the 6C here. Sorry, with the plastic, it's a little bit difficult to see. So I have one 6C and two 6Bs. So I know for this clue here that I'm going to need all of them. Sometimes we only use 1 or 2. And so what I'm doing, this one 6A, I'm putting it back in the bag so I do not lose it or mix up any of my pieces. And so now you can do whatever works best for you. This is just how I keep myself organized. So again, our 6C is in the middle. It's a square, and our 6Bs are going to go on the top and on the bottom. And like I said, make sure you pay special attention because our triangles in the 6B sections should be pointing down at the bottom and pointing up at the top. And to make this easier on myself, I prefer to clip both sections at the same time. So I'm folding this up, right sides together. They should match up nicely. I do not have seams that I need to, like a center seam that I need to worry about. So I'm just clipping straight across. I'm going to fold this open slightly and then take this top piece and fold it down onto it. Again, matching up the sides. And I'm just doing both sides at once. It makes it quicker when I go to sew. Oh, wow, I just broke 2 clips in a row. All right, we'll try this again. Okay, so now I have my 2 sides clipped to that 6C section. I am going to take it to my machine and stitch across the top and the bottom. And while I am there, I am also going to press my seams towards that center block. Okay, so here I have my step 1. I don't need it right now for step 2, so I'm just moving it out of the way. Now I have step 2, and we are making 2 of these sections, and we are joining a 7B to the top of a section 3A. So again, I'm going to grab my clue 7, and we're making 2 of these. So in my instructions, we had 2 7Bs. So now I know that I'm going to need both of them. Okay, so here's my 7Bs. I'm going to put the rest of clue 7 back in the bag. And then I'll need section 3A. and section 3A had 2 sections. So I know that I will need both of them. So here's my 3A, and I'm going to put the 3B back. So for you, it might be easier to lay all your clues out. This method is what works best for me. Okay, so now we need our clue 7B on top of 3A. So what I do need to make sure is that my fabric is lined up correctly. So, sorry, I'm just looking at the pictures, making sure my A fabric is dark, and my B fabric is light. But here, the A fabric is light and the D fabric is dark. So I always mess them up. All right, so yours should look just like this. If it is done correctly, you'll see that the A fabrics here make a chevron or like an arrow pointing to the left. And again, we have 2 of these. So I'm just going to lay them out side by side. And I'm going to put them right sides together. So you will notice that we do have a center seam. So again, I'm going to put them right sides together. But what I prefer to do is then kind of pull the fabric closer to me so I can really make sure that I am nesting my seams, and they should go in opposite directions. So I am clipping that first and then clipping the rest of it. For me, it's more important to try to match up that center seam. I'll do the same on this side here. And the same thing. I make sure that my seams are sitting right next to each other. And again, clipping that first and then clipping the rest. For me, it's easier to kind of hold it and bring it up towards my face. If it's easier for you to lay it flat on the table, whatever works best for you to clip it. Okay, so I'm going to bring this to the machine and stitch across both of these. And then I'm going to press the seams up. They are going to be pressed towards our 7B sections. All right, so these are my step 2s. I have pressed the seams up, and now we are moving on to step 3. So if you'll notice, we're making a larger square with like a diamond in the center. So this one here on the right hand side, I am flipping around. So that way my arrows are pointing out left and right. And now I need to grab my step 1 and put that in the center. So this is what it is going to look like. It's starting to get bigger. If you notice, every single seam matches up here for both the right hand side and the left hand side. So what I'm going to do is definitely take my time. And like I said before, I like to pull things closer to me when I am pinning. So I'm going to put them right sides together and then turn it towards me. And I'm just going to start at the bottom and work my way out, matching up and clipping every single seam. And most of the seams should nest. I have a couple that might not, because sometimes they get flipped by my feed dogs and I don't go back through and reverse them. But I'm pretty sure that almost every single seam should nest together. And I'm just working my way. I have used a full 1/4 inch seam allowance when piecing this entire quilt. So everything should match up. I'm putting an extra clip in the center here just because that's a longer piece. And so far, it seems that everything is matching up. So you're going to repeat this step for both the right-hand side and the left-hand side. I'm just going to show on camera this right-hand side just because it's the same exact thing on the left. And I like to clip both the top and the bottom. And you could bring this to the machine now and sew it. Press your seams. Our seams are going to be pressed towards the outside, so to the right and to the left. But what I prefer to do is I'm going to open this up, put this one right sides together. I'm going to clip both sides and sew both of them at the same exact time. So I'm going to clip the rest of this off camera, and then I'll come back after I have it pressed. Okay, so I have just completed step 3, attached my 2 columns to the right and left of that center, and pressed my seams to the right and left. So now I have this nice rectangle going on. You'll know that you did it correctly because if you look at the center, all your B fabric should line up, your A fabric, and then your C fabric should have a border of D fabric. And so your top and the bottom should be like reflections or the inverse of each other. So this completes step 3. We will be building off of this in the next steps, but we don't need it right yet. So again, I'm going to move this out of the way. And we're going to move on to section or step 4. So if we kind of jump ahead and look at the big picture, you'll see where we're turning this into one large square using steps 4 and 5. So let's start with step 4. We are going to need a section 9C. And we are going to need one, well, we're making 2 of these. So for this strip here, we're using 1, but since we're making 2, I'm going to be using both. So again, I'm just checking through, making sure that I am grabbing the correct sections. Of course, it happened to be the very last one inside. And we have 2 sections of 9C. So I'm grabbing them both. And we do not need the rest of step 9 yet, so I'm going to put them back. And then we need a 3B. So again, opening up 3. We've already used 3A in the beginning. So now we're using 3B. And that means I've used all of my pieces. So once I do that, I move the bag completely out of the way. And then last, we're going to need 2 sections on 6A. And again, this is the last sections from steps or month 6. So I'm going to move this out of the way as well. All right, so now according to our instructions, we need 9C at the top with our D fabric in the top right-hand corner. So for Moonlit, that is the white fabric. So I'm just going to move the separate section one at a time so I have enough space in the video. Okay, so I have my 9C up top, my F triangle here on the left, so I know that I did it correctly. In the middle, I have a 3V section, which is right here. And I need to make sure that my A fabrics which are these darker colors here, are to the right. So I want to have my 2 flying geese on the left. This side only has the 1. So I know I did that correctly because my A fabrics are all lining up. And then now I need a section of 6A. And this one is almost the opposite of our 9C section at the top. So for this one, we want our D fabric in the bottom right-hand corner. So when we put this all together, it should look like this. You're going to know that you did it correctly because your A fabrics are going to make this X. And then along the left-hand side, you're going to have your 2 F flying geese. So, and your C fabrics all line up. So I'm always like triple checking my pictures here as well as the instructions to make sure that the blocks are correct. Because once you start sewing this together, it would really be a shame and a pain to have to unpick everything. And so like we did before, I'm going to clip both of them at the same time. So I'm going to put this right sides together. And there's 4 seams that are lining up. So I'm just starting on the left, working my way across, and everything is lining up very nicely because all my seams are nesting. And then I'm just clipping the end. So when I open this up, the other thing that I'm doing as I'm going along, whether it's here in this step or when I'm pressing, if I see any stray threads, I'm pulling them now. That way I don't have to do as much cleanup later on, or sometimes where it's fraying when you sew it, it will get stuck. So I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible and pulling it as I go. All right, so in order to make sure I don't flip this the wrong way, I am going to put it right sides together while I have it orientated this way, but then I'm gonna turn it so that way I can see the seams better. And I like to lay them out and put them right sides together in the manner that I just did because it's so easy to accidentally flip something around or turn it the wrong way. This way it's less likely you're going to accidentally reverse your fabrics or reverse your blocks. Okay, so I have both of these clipped. I am going to take it to the machine, sew both sides, and press them. So for these, our seams are being pressed towards this middle 3B section. So again, you're making 2 of these. I'm going to clip my other one off camera, but sew them both at the same time, just because I'm running out of room here. Great, so I have just sewn together both of my step 4s, and as you can tell, the seams are coming together pretty nicely. There's a couple that don't line up perfectly, but I don't worry about it. I'm not entering these into like a quilt show, and for me, it's just like the enjoyment of putting it all together. So if we look, our step 4 is eventually going to go to the left and the right of that center rectangle that we made up here in step 3. But before we do that, we are going to make 2 long pieces in step 5. So I am going to move these out of the way and work on step 5. So we need quite a few different sections for this one. We're going to need 1A, 4B, 9D, 7A, and another 1A. So let's just start with the ones. And there are 4 1As. But for this, we only Oh, actually, I lied. I was going to say we only need 2, but we're making 2 of these sections. So we actually do need all 4, which is good because sometimes it's harder when we start only using half of them. This way they can all stay together. Okay, so there's my 4 1As. I'll put the rest of the 1Bs back. And then I'm going to need 4B. And we should have 2 of them. Okay, so here's our 4Bs. Again, putting that. It takes a little bit of time, but like I said, it just makes it so much easier for me. Our next is a 9D. And we'll need both of those. And a 7A. All right, so as you can see, starting to get really crowded on my table. So I'm just going to move these out of the way for right now, just so I have room to work. And so it says join step 4B to the left of a 9D and then to the right a 7A, and then add your 1As. I like to lay mine out all 5 pieces to start with. So our 1As, I want to make sure that large F triangle is in that top left corner. And then I have a section 4B. I want to make sure that my, again, large F triangle in the flying geese is in that top row. And actually what I'm going to do is, so I don't get confused, is line these up at the same exact time. So I have my 1As, my 4Bs. Now I have my 9D, and we want our flying geese facing down with our large A rectangle towards the bottom. Okay. And so now I'm running out of space here. I still need a 7A and a 1A on the right hand side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into sections. So I'm going to attach or sew these together first and then add in the next steps. You could work from the center out, left to right. It doesn't really matter as long as you are pressing everything in the correct direction. So I'm going to start, here's my center. This is the 9D panel. So I'm going to fold it over onto my 4B. And again, we have center seams that need to be lined up. So I am going to do that first. And another thing, if you can see here, like it doesn't match up exactly. So like my seam allowance sometimes wavers a tiny bit. So I am just easing this in or aligning it the best that I can. If it overlaps a little bit, I just hide it in the seam allowance. I don't stress about it. It gets hidden in the back. Okay, so if we open it up, again, this is our center 9D, 4B. Now we have 1A. So I'm going to put that right sides together and then turn it towards me so I know that I'm clipping the correct side. And I'll just put some clips on the end. So what I'm going to do is off camera, I'm going to clip the top row in the same exact way. Take this to the machine and sew and press them. The arrows for this case are going towards 4B on this left-hand side. And then I'm going to come back and show you how we attach the right-hand side. All right, so I'm still on step 5. I have joined the first 3 sections. So 1A, 4B, and then the middle is 9D. And this is just because I only have a couple feet of table space to work with. So now I'm just going to slide these over, and we need a 7A on the right hand side. So again, I want my F triangle pointing down and my C square in that top left corner. And then now for the last one on the right hand side, we need our 1A piece again, and our triangle is going to be on the top right. Or our large F triangle. So that way, if you opened up this whole thing, the 1A pieces on the right and left hand side, that large F triangle, are the cornerstones of that, the corner points. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same exact thing as far as clipping and pressing. And so I'm gonna start with my center first. And again, I'm turning it just a little bit so I can really line up my seams. Wow, today's not the day for clips. I'm really breaking them all. Okay, so once I have this clipped first, open it back up. Here we have my 1A piece. Again, put them right sides together. So you can see the quilt is starting to get quite large. To show you the piecings for the next one, I'm going to have to start moving to the floor to lay them out. And if you have a small space, like, you could definitely do this. I'm just moving to the floor so that way I can show it for the video. Okay, so I'm going to clip the top piece together, and then our seams for this one are both being pressed to the right hand side. So I'm going to do that off camera. All right, so I have both of my step 5s here. Again, they're so large they do not fit on the table. So I am going to take all of these out to the living room so I can put it out on the floor, because we are going to lay them out and make this large square, rectangle. I'm not sure the exact dimensions yet. So I will come back and show you how we are attaching them. All right, so I have laid out the next step on the floor. These 2 sections here on the right and left are step 4. We'll know that we have them correct because they are opposite sides, and our F triangles are on the outside. So make sure that one side is the reverse of the other. And then step 5 is on the bottom and the top, and we know we have them correct because our F triangles will be in all 4 corners. So you can see that they're reversed. The top one is reversed from the bottom. So we're going to sew these steps together. First, we're going to sew step 4 to this center piece. So off camera, I'm going to put them right sides together and make sure I'm matching up every single one of those seams. I'm going to press them open, and then I'm going to come back and put step 5 on the top and the bottom. Okay, so I have just sewed the step 4 to the left and the right of our centerpiece. And so now I'm going to take it and sew the step 5 to the bottom and the top. You'll know you're doing it correctly because you're going to see the pattern starting to come through in our A and D fabric. It should be kind of creating these curls when it's all put together. So make sure you're lining up your seams again for each of these. And I'm going to do that and then take it to the machine and press them. All right, so this is the end of step 7. I have added the left and right sides and then the top and the bottom. So you should see this pattern here, like I mentioned before, with the D fabric in the Moonlit colorway. That's this white fabric. You'll know that you have everything correctly because your F fabrics are in all 4 corners, and then in your flying geese along the right and the left side, and they should be pointing in. So I'm going to leave this at where it is. I'm going to go back to my craft room for step 8, and it's some more piecing. All right, so now we're on step 8. We are making 4 of these sections, so we're going to need clue 4A, 2, and 8. So we should be using up a lot of what we have left. So if we look at section or clue 8, we have 8 of them. So we are actually using all 8 because we are going to need 2 for each of these. And we want our clue, or I keep saying clue, our fabric A pointing towards the top. So like I said, we are making 4. I'm going to lay out 1 for right now, just because of space. And then here's my clue 2. And we also have 8 of these. So our clue 2 is sitting to the left and the right of one of our clue 8s. Again, with our A fabric to the top. And they look very, very similar. The only difference is these bottom fabrics here in the flying geese. It should be rotating between a D fabric and a C fabric. And then we have 4 of section 4A. And that is going to be on the far left here. So as you can see, this is quite wide. But I have 4 blocks or 5 blocks laid out. My section 4A, 2, 8, 2, and 8 again. And I know that I did it correctly because all of my A fabric is at the top and all of my B fabric is at the bottom. And then you should see the alternating between the bottom flying geese. So I am going to fold these right side together, clip them, and sew the column. And like I said, there's 4 of them. So I'm going to do all 4 at once. Okay, so I just want to come back on to show you, we're on step 8 and I'm working my way from right to left. So I have sewn and pressed 2 sections already. So this piece here is my section 8. This piece here is my section 2. So now, and I have 4 of them because we're making 4. Now I'm adding my next piece, which is a section 8 or block 8 to the left of what we just sewed. So I'm going to add that for all 4 of them. and continue going along. So it'll be 8, then a 2, and then a 4A. And you should have 4 of them when you're done. Okay, so I have just finished step 8, sewing all the way across. You can kind of see it in the background, the different sections. It's much larger than my table, so I have it kind of curved up. And so you should have 4 of them. Now in step 9, we need our block 7C, should be your last blocks in your bag 7. And on 2 of those rows up here, we need to add a block to the end. And what you want to pay attention to is the F squares, because they're going to be mirrored. So if we pull one of these forward, on this side, our F square is going to be in the top left. And then on this side, our F square, we're rotating the block so it can be in the top right. So I know it's really like smushed and hard to see. I'm going to sew these blocks on both the left and right hand side to 2 of our step 8. And then it has you move on to step 10 and 11. But for me, it's going to be easier to attach them. So before I do that, I'm going to take my 8 and 9 out and show you what that should look like, just so you know that you're doing everything correctly. So again, just to reiterate, our 7C blocks are going to the left and right of 2 of our step 8, making sure that F square is in the top left and top right corners. All right, so I have just finished step 9, which is adding the 2 7Cs to the left and right. So again, this is like a huge strip. You can see here on the left, I have my F triangle in the top left. And if we follow that across, on this side, it is in the top right. So I'm going to take my steps 8 and 9 and jump ahead to step 12 and 13, just so I can attach them first before building these outside borders. It just helps my brain and like organizing it better for me. But if it works better for you to sew steps 10 and 11 first and then move on to this, you can do that too. So I'm going to bring everything out to the floor so I can lay it out to show you. Okay, so I've just come out and laid out the quilt on the floor. So I have step 8 and step 9 here. And if we look at the diagram, I have laid it out where step 9 is on the top and the bottom, and step 8 is on the left and the right. So if we're looking at the quilt, here is step 8 vertically on each side. Make sure that your A fabric is facing towards the exterior, the outside. And then step 9 is along the bottom and the top. And you should have an F square in every corner. So make sure you're flipping your quilt the correct way that you need to go in order to have that border of the A fabric. So I'm going to put my step 8 right sides together with our center square. Sew that first, and then put my step 9 on the top and the bottom. So now I'm moving on to step 10, These are the side pieced borders, so the picture here on the left and the right. So we are building 2 of them, and we're going to start with a 9A, and we need to make sure our A triangles are on the right hand side. So we need a 9A, a section 5, and these are all long strips. Okay, so then a section 5 will come next. And again, I'm kind of building this on my table, which is very short for this. So again, 9A, a 5. We need a second 5. And then a 1B. And be very mindful when for packets 9 and 1, because there are different ones that are going to go in step 11. So be very mindful that you're grabbing the correct pieces. And so we are making 2 of these, so I'm just laying them out now. So again, this is going to be very long. It's as long as our quilt. We want a 1B on the bottom, a 5, another 5, and then that 9A at the top. We're going to have 2 of these strips together. So I'm going to lay them out and clip them. Again, it'll be easier to see once I have it back out on the floor, but it's just easier for me to clip now near my sewing machine. And so like I said, we're making 2 of these. Okay, so I have just sewed my 2 pieces for step 10. I actually have them like looped around just to fit on the table. Like I said, this is my first large size and it's such a long quilt. I'm so excited. So again, you should have a 9A piece, 2 5 pieces, and then a 1B. And this is going to go onto our left and right hand sides. So now I'm going to put step 11 together. We're going to have 2 of them, and they're going to be even longer because those are going to be our top and bottom pieces. So I'm going to lay them out on the table as best I can and try to show. All right, so for step 11 is kind of exciting. This is our last step with our pieces from each month. So we are starting out with a 1C, and that is this block here. So this time we want to make sure our A triangles are facing up. And again, we're making 2 of them. So we have our 1C. Then, just like our step 9, we're going to have 2 piece 5s. So it's going to go 1, 2. And I'm just going to move them left to right a little bit. I'm not clipping. I usually clip one section at a time and then sew them. So that's what I've been doing off camera. So here's our second section 5. And then all the way on the right hand side, we need our very last section. Oh, and look here. I definitely need to be mindful. I was putting the A triangles down. It's so easy to accidentally flip the order. Okay, so now I'm putting them all back up and move them to the side. Our last section is 9B, and that is the tail end. So this one is longer, but less, oh no, I guess this one also has 4 sections. For whatever reason, I thought this one had 5. This one has 4 sections, but what it is our pieces, like our C blocks, instead of squares, they're rectangles. So I'm going to start on the right hand side, work my way across, and sew up 2 of these long strips. All right, so I have just sewed up step 11. It's super long, so I actually have it wrapped around I'm going to take it back out and then jump to step 14 and 15, putting on those outside borders that we just created. So I'm going to show you what that looks like all laid out on the floor. Okay, so I've just brought the quilt back out. I have done step 12 and 13 where I've attached them to the square. And then I have done step 10 and 11 where I've made my borders. So that's what you see now, where we have our made borders. So step 14 is we are sewing step 10, which is the side borders. So on the right and the left is step 10. And then for step 15, it is the bottom and the top, which comes from our step 11. So they look very similar. Step 11 just has like a larger rectangle at the end. So make sure you don't have them mixed up. One thing that I will note is that the seams are not matching up in all the locations. So just double check. It's more important that you have like that triangle shape, because the seams, if you look at our picture, are not always aligned. So I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to sew step 14, which is the sides. And then I'm going to sew step 15, which is the top and the bottom. And then we only have to add our solid borders and we'll be done. Okay, so I have just attached the sides on in step 14. I'm just coming back real quick to show you where I now have to attach on the top and the bottom. And one way that you can tell that you have it lined up correctly is there is a C fabric square. That should be in the center of your quilt. It's also on the left and right hand sides as well. And this is very helpful because if you sewed a full 1/4 inch seam allowance like I did, you might have a little bit of overhang on the end on the left and right side where it doesn't match up perfectly. So for me, I'm starting at this C square in the center and clipping out along each side. Great, so I have just added step 14 and 15, and that brings us to our final borders, which we have a solid C fabric for. We're not adding any piecing. So what we'll need for that is our month 10. And like I said before, mine has the bonus gifts of the pens in it. Yours probably does too if you prepaid. It may be different if it's a monthly. And there's a couple different things in here. You have 2 strips of borders, and I'm going to set them aside for just a second because we also have our A fabric. This is going to be for the binding. So I'm going to set that aside for now. It does tell you in all the directions how to cut your binding, what the measurements should be. And so in this pack, we have 2 shorter strips and 2 longer strips of fabric C. So I'm going to take them. I have my quilt laid out on the floor, and then we're at our final steps over here. So it tells you to measure your quilt top from top to bottom and trim your side C borders to fit that. I don't do that. I actually just lay them out. So if we look here, our longer strips of C are going to go on the left and right hand side. So I just lay them out, and if they have a little overhang, that's okay. Just in case I'm not so much like a confident sewer that if it shifts a little bit, I don't want it to be short on one end or the other. So I prefer to trim after. So I'm going to lay out my short sides on the left and the right, and my longer side on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to proceed to sew them exactly like we did for these outside pieces that we just did in steps 14 and 15. And I'm going to try to show you as best as I can. This quilt is getting so large that I'm running out of floor space. So I'm going to try to lay them out and show you. And one last thing I wanted to say is these are not extra borders. This is included in month 10. If you have extra borders, it will give you the instructions down here. I do not have extra borders, so I will be stopping my tutorial at this step up here. Okay, so I have laid out my final borders. You might not be able to see at the top. Like I said, the quilt is getting so large, it's taking up almost all the floor space. I might have reversed it when I was just saying the longer strips are on the left and right side, and the shorter are at the bottom and the top. And if you look at the edge, you can see how I have not trimmed them. Again, that's my preference in case any of the fabric shifts. I don't end up too short. I like to trim them at the very end. So again, I'm gonna start with the left and the right side sewing them on, and then the top and the bottom. All right, so we have just finished up month 10, our clue 10. This is the large size. The border here, the fabric C, is included in that month 10. This is without extra borders or the backing fabric. So if you have ordered that, you will be receiving that separately. I have not backed it or bound it yet. On your colorway, you are going to get enough binding in fabric A. So enough fabric A to cut all your binding strips. You will need more if you purchase the extra borders. But for this tutorial and my quilt, this is the large size as is without any extras. So I hope you enjoyed the last 10 months. Thank you so much for being a member of my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love if you did or gave me a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow and I appreciate it so much. Thank you to Cotton Cuts for allowing me to be an ambassador and continue being an ambassador. I absolutely love the Puzzle Mystery Quilt, and I am so excited to see how our Wild West is coming together. And do not forget to follow Cotton Cuts because the next sign up will be in December for the next spring Puzzle Mystery Quilt. So see you next time. Bye.